All right, everybody, welcome to another live cast here on the channel. We are not done this Thanksgiving week. It seems like we're trying to squeeze in that last little bit of work before everybody disappears Wednesday into sometime Monday or Tuesday of next week. But as always, I'm Josh Beiser here on Game Wisdom, and we have another developer live cast. Joining me is a fan of the site and frequent podcast guest. He is the owner and lead designer of Ninja 5, who are currently working on the game Buluk Mayan Warfare. So please welcome back Traevon Taylor.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Traevon, it's great to see you back on. How's everything going with you?
It's been good. Preparing for the holidays. Just we're reworking Bullock. When you guys see what we have, you're like, whoa, completely different. I don't know if you guys seen what's going on the internet right now. Any of the changes, because we kind of kept the changes to a minimum, but I'm posting a little bit on Twitter and mostly on Instagram. So just that and revisiting marketing fundamentals and preparing for holidays.
I know. Excuse me. My holidays are going to be doing more with my book, as well as it's time at long last to start buying new computer parts. You know, the joy of dropping down $2,000 on hardware. It's that very fun, magical period of the year.
That's an investment right there.
Yep, it's one I've been... I'm sorry?
Congrats on the book and the 1 million views. I seen that earlier. I was like, whoa.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like everything is like for me, it's feast or famine. Either nothing is happening and there's nothing to report, or the book drops. I have 1 million views on YouTube. I may even be doing a presentation at a college in the fall next year, or I'm sorry, spring, which may lead into like teaching a course, so an undergrad course there. So it's definitely going to be some exciting time, and I'm working on my second book right now as well, talking all about platforming and jump design.
That's good. So you're making moves. That's good.
Oh, yes. Making moves and just trying to keep myself busy and sane at the same time. It's easy to do one, but doing them both is another matter entirely.
Right.
But it has been several months. I think, did we speak earlier in 2018? I'm pretty sure we did.
It was 2017 at the end of the
God.
Right.
I'm glad you remember. I'm glad at least one of us remembers these dates, because fans of Game Wisdom know that I have no recollection of time or dates at all. Like, we just did a podcast yesterday, live-wise, with game developer Megan Fox of Glassbottom Games, and we didn't speak for at least 4 or 5 years. That was the last time we actually spoke. And, like, even when I talked to Chris Park, and that was like a 2-year gap, it feels like it's been like a decade since we last had a conversation. That's always seems to be the case when it comes to game development.
That's how it happens. I just remember, like, first getting on the cast, I believe you were between, 200 and 500 subscribers. That's why I seen you at like 36, and you broke that 1 million views. I was like, whoa, that is very good.
Yeah, it's just about constantly keeping that growth going. You know, what's that saying about sharks can't stop or they'll drown, that kind of thing? You just gotta keep on moving.
Yeah, like if they stop swimming, they drown.
But
yeah,
I know right now we don't have too many people watching this live. I was kind of thinking that may happen, but this will of course be going up recorded, so everybody will be sure to check things out. Then again, we are recording this literally 2 days before Thanksgiving here in the United States, so I'm sure people have a lot more on their minds right now. But that still doesn't excuse us from having a game design conversation. As fans know, we can talk anywhere at any time about design, morning, noon, or night. So
conversation they can. I remember, like, I think one time it was I believe it was the live cast. I think it went for like 3 hours one time.
Yeah.
It was nearly 3 hours.
Yeah, I'm hoping we don't get that far. Traevon has to go see a movie tonight, so I don't want to be the reason why he gets late to that.
Right, I gotta see Creed 2. I gotta see it.
But with that said, there is certainly a lot to catch up about. So, again, for people who are watching this for the first time, whether it's live or recorded, could you give us kind of like the brief pitch about what Ninja 5 is and what is Buluk Mayan Warfare?
I'll talk about Bullock first. So we redesigned the description of it. I don't know if you've seen. But mainly, a Buluk Mayan Warfare, it is an Aztec Mayan-themed action RPG. Yeah, I know that's a new one right there. Like, that's the first time people probably heard that associated with Bullock, but you'll soon learn why. But yeah, it's an Aztec Mayan-themed action RPG. So players, they across the ancient Mexico, they're uniting the different Mayan cities because towards the end of the game, the Spaniards arrive and they must defeat them. So either you will win or lose. So depending on how you do, that will determine the outcome of the game. So in the game, you are able to customize your warriors that go onto the battlefield into these cities. You can customize them with different armor and weapons, and there's also spells. So the cool thing is, we named it after Bullock Chopton, I think I'm mispronouncing his name, the Mayan god of war and sacrifice. So as you're killing enemies, you're taking their blood and it's fueling your magic. So you can do cool things such as shooting fireballs and flames out of your hands. You can even, I believe, teleport. We call it the teleport slash. Basically, increase your speed. You can cut down enemies without them. By the time they know what happened, they're already dead. You can also sacrifice your own health to fuel your spells as well, because there's no mana in the game. It's your blood. It's your life force, basically. We do have a campaign map. I'm sorry, I'm like all over the place. But there's a campaign map where you get to choose which city you select. Because essentially the warriors you're playing as, they're augmented with magic almost. So you're completing when you're attacking these cities, you're doing stuff to weaken it so that the main army can sweep in and take over. Assassinating a leader, you might be removing riders, that kind of stuff. So
okay.
Oh, good.
I was just going to say that I remember when we first had you on for an audio cast. Again, it seems like a decade ago when we first spoke. You talked about how you were heavily inspired by Mayan mythology and Mayan culture for Bullock. And
of course.
When you first talked about it, you of course brought up comparisons to XCOM or Total War in terms of, again, like that grand strategy component, and then you have the ARPG or action side to it. So I guess from what you're describing, is the grand campaign that kind of decision making still involved in Bullock, or has it been scaled down?
So the grand campaign is still there because you do have the campaign map. Your cities are there that you select to attack. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. We now have the research. Like, you can research spells now. So the game progresses through the turns. Okay. So that is still there. You're progressing turn by turn. And you're researching stuff to the side. You're crafting weapons and armor based off the resources that you gain from attacking these cities. So that campaign is still there. We decided it'd be best to focus on what would attract our target audience. So yeah, we do have those strategy elements, the grand campaign, but that's not really what attracts our target audience from what we have seen. Okay. I guess that's something we can go into too, just in regards to like when game developers and publishers, when they do stuff, how their target audience can influence what they're trying to do and why you don't see certain things cross over. Yeah. Now, as for the grand campaign, there might still be diplomacy that will add to the game, stuff you see in Total War. And progression, we have the researching of technology, so it's your spells, your different weapon tiers, such as you even unlock steel weapons as well. So the different tier of weapons, building upgrades that can influence the battle, but not so heavy. So it's not heavy empire management. To say it's light too, I think might be doing a disservice. But similar to XCOM in that way as well. Okay.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot to go over. Like we said, the last time we spoke was about a year ago, maybe give or take. And as anyone who does game development knows, that can, a year can might as well be like 15 years. And Mojo, this is Traevon Taylor. He is the owner and lead designer of the studio Ninja 5, and they're currently working on the game Buluk Mayan Warfare.
How's it going, dude? I would type, but I got 2 keyboards in front of me.
So with Bullock, and again, there's a lot of things we can say. There's a lot of jumping points, I think, at this juncture we can go to. So with Actually, here's I think the one thing I want to talk to you about, because I remember we were slowly talking about this last time, and you were still figuring things out, and that is the combat portion of Bullock. Because I remember when we first, like, I think we're up to, this is either cast number 3 or cast number 4 with you, and with each one, we kind of talked about kind of the evolving the action side of things. I think it's also segueing to what we were just saying with regards to changing the game. So, over the last year with developing Bullock, how has, like, the combat side gone? Like, what did you find with developing the combat system and evolving it to where it is now? Like, what are your thoughts on that side?
Well, I'm glad you phrased it like that. Mm-hmm. Like, the core of the game is still there. That core of you're attacking cities, you're taking resources, you're building up your empire, you're improving your warriors, using blood to fuel spells. The combat's pretty much the same. We improved it, if anything. Well, first off, the game is full 3D now. I don't know if anyone's seen that. The game, that's a big announcement right there. We announced, last month. The game is full 3D.
Okay. And for people watching this live recorder right now, I remember your original footage and kind of like the teasers you put out. It was like the side-scrolling, almost like maybe like a 2.5D kind of viewpoint for it.
Right. The problem with that was it was hard to carry out the vision of what we want the game to be. So it's not necessarily increasing the scale. Like some people will say, like, yo, are you crazy? You switched to full 3D. But that, well, I'm an environment artist mainly. Like, that's something I focused on in school, the environment art and level design aspect. So I have no problem with rebuilding levels. I just take the modular kits. Like, we're using the same assets, but we're tailoring it for 3D, like the way we're setting it up. But in regards to combat, though, how we changed it, we went back to our original sources of inspiration, because originally in combat, we were looking at Fable and a little bit of Witcher. But now if you play, you're like, oh, this is like Witcher. Like, we had this running joke saying, my programmer said, hey, why do we have a dodge if we have a roll in the game? I'm like, well, Witcher has it. But then I really thought about it, and I was like, yo, it's risk versus reward. You roll out the way, you got to get back in combat and attack the enemy. You dodge, you can quickly attack. And I verified that on Reddit too. I posed the question to gamers. I asked them, and we can discuss that later about interacting with gamers and stuff when it comes to marketing. So we improved combat. So now it feels more fluid, especially with the animations as well. You can block, like the blocking is more, I guess, intuitive. That's the right word. You can block while moving. Like Assassin's Creed Origins, for instance. Like, I used to think shield and sword combat was boring. I used to hate it, and I was like, well, we still have to have it in the game. You know, the Maya, they used the shield and a mock Weddle, like their sword. Right? I play Assassin's Creed Origins. I was like, this is actually fun using a shield and sword. I looked at Breath of the Wild as well. So you will notice how the shield and sword, how you use that in game. Magic still functions the same. We added actually 2 new spells as well. You have the Wind Blast. Yeah, he knows what's up. Wait till you see the new demo, not the demo that was sent out to you, but the newer demo that we're working on. But the Wind Blast, and we have the Tidal Wave spell. Okay. I posted a little bit about that, I believe, on Instagram. So we have 2 new spells. We're gonna add more. It's like a lot. The dodging and rolling, just like in Witcher, if you want to completely remove yourself from the battle and take that less risk, you just roll out the way. If you want to stay engaged and quickly get your hits in, you will dodge to the side and a slash. That's the other thing too. We increase now the speed from which you can attack from a block. It's almost like it's a counter almost without the slow motion stuff. How that works. You can now attack in different directions. You can lock onto your enemies as well and strafe. Actually, I'm telling you, man, like, we looked at Assassin's Creed and Witcher.
Yeah, and it sounds like with that move from 2D to 3D combat, it really does afford a lot more in terms of depth, in terms of the combat design. It's like when we talk about, like, if you play, I'm sure everybody watching this live recorder knows about Dark Souls right now. If you go from playing Dark Souls to something like Hollow Knight or Soul and Sanctuary,
yes,
it's that one additional. I'm sorry.
Or the pharaonic. Remember the Egyptian Dark Souls like?
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, like that. Like you can see that difference. That there's only so much you can really do in a two-dimensional space in terms of combat depth, and even more that like the depth perception of being able to swing your weapon. Like it can be very hard in 2D, I find, to sometimes know, okay, I'm going to swing it, but no, I just missed it. In 3D, you're given a lot more you're given a lot more information, I think, to the player in terms of responding to enemies.
Yes, it's more. I'm not gonna say responsive. It gives you more freedom.
Yeah,
and that was the that's the other thing. More freedom to do what we want to do. Like we can actually add in mission objectives now, make it make more sense. Players will now feel like they're more in the environment. I know in the past people told me, they liked the environment, so they felt like they were there. But now, if that's how you felt in the past, that's how you're gonna feel. You're gonna feel more of that now. Like you're in the Mayan city. Think of Assassin's Creed Origins, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, The Witcher. Like you're there. It adds more freedom, and you're not just moving from point A to point B. You're taking these different paths. Like in this demo right here that I'm working on right now, that's because it's like a city. You could take multiple routes to the finishing point.
And not only that, but from a realism standpoint, even just from a level design standpoint, it gives you more to work with. Because in a two-dimensional space, so much of the detail is more in the background rather than what you, the player, are actually able to experience. It's a difference between exploring a level in Super Mario Bros. 3 versus, again, exploring a city in Assassin's Creed or in The Witcher, or even pick any Dark Souls area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go full open world. Like no. We still use some form of linear level design, right? It's not open world. No, it's like I believe in Witcher 2 or even Fable. Not Fable Anniversary in the first Fable. Fable had it where it was linear level design, and you still had choices on how you would move about in the level. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, like something like even like the 3D Castlevania games, the ones Lord of Shadows, I think, like that one. Again, you're still dealing with a fixed level, but you have a lot more. Again, you have a lot more room to work with in 3D than you do in a two-dimensional space. And like 2D, I think for a lot of people, it becomes more about the technicality of the platforming rather than the exploration. Because anyone who's played a 2D game in the last 15, 20 years knows that those levels aren't meant to be realistic. There's no building in the world that looks like a Mario level. But when you're
there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. That's why we figured that it would be best to thanks, man. Thank you. The enthusiasm. That's why we figured it would be best to go 3D. Because we were kind of doing a disservice to obviously, there's been games before in the past that had like the Maya and the Aztecs, but I feel like there's nothing like this. I mean, Total War Kingdoms did it good, where you're in the cities and stuff, but they weren't vibrant like this.
There's
and
that
for us to make full 3D, I know I keep using this reference, but look, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, that game is amazing. I feel like I'm in Greece, or even Origins. I'm in Egypt.
Yeah,
like this is awesome.
There's the only other like Mayan-based game I can think of is that very horrible like C movie Steam game that came out. I know we must have brought it up on chat at one point, but I cannot remember its name.
Let me pull up. Let me Google it. Are you talking about Aztecs?
No, there's like you start as like it felt like you were playing like a B action movie, like a very generic action adventure game with like platforming, and it was the name of the game was named after the main character, and I can't remember it.
Aztec video games. Go check it out. Like, I mean, there was games like Aztecs and Mulaka. They did a good job, I think. It's just that, well, Mulaka was in northern Mexico. That was completely. That was away from like those civilizations and stuff. We can go into about Aztecs later on the cast too, because that ties back into the marketing and how we approach the fan base and why you don't see certain things mixing with each other in games.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I do have a few questions I want to ask you about that in a few minutes. Now, keeping with the transition from 2D to 3D, like as you said a few minutes ago, Traevon, for a lot of developers, that's considered like, you know, the taboo. Like that's the sign that a project is in trouble when you're making that big engine switch or even that big design switch. So you've already brought up again about the strategy side. You brought about action. In terms of like, like overall game development, like for you and the rest of your studio, how was it making that transition from a 2D engine to a 3D one?
Well, my team, they want. It was someone brought it up. My team, we got invited to Mexico to show off the game. That's a story in itself. My team, they went out there, and when they came back, it was brought up. And then it was in the back of my mind for a while, especially like after how the Kickstarter went. And I said, hey, this is the opportunity to approach how we do things. So this is an opportunity right here. So I brought it up to my programmer. I thought he was going to say, are you crazy? Like, you know, like you don't switch game engines. Yeah. No, my programmer, that's what he wanted. My UI artist, that's what she wanted. Our animator, that's what he wanted. Our character artist, that's what he wanted. So it was a unanimous decision. And I just, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, we had to tweak some things on the programming side, but at the end of the day, it came down to me just building out the levels. Like, it's not like we created new assets. No, I took our modular kit and I reused it. No, I just rebuilt the levels. Oh, in regards to combat as well, that's what I forgot to tell you. In the past, it did get to the point where I felt like I was just button mashing in the game. Let's see with the shield and sword, and that's what I mean. Even with the heavy and light combos, right? So we had to approach it. We're trying to figure out like how do we make it so it doesn't feel like button mashing as well.
It's more like tactile, basically.
Yeah, because oh my god, see this, like I said, this is a good discussion. This goes into like why God of War made that shift. Like why God of War, the number 4 isn't like how the previous God of Wars are, and this goes back to as Tez, like all that is related to each other. Yeah, it's making sure combat doesn't feel like you're just button mashing. Oh, because in the past, some players were like, sometimes they felt like they were just mashing away through the level. Yeah, and yeah, we had different enemy variety. I guess that helped as well. So we just wanted to make sure players weren't feeling like they were button mashing. I'm playing other games and I'm like, well, why is this fun? And then this aspect right here isn't fun. What can we do? So we analyzed, like we looked at it, we analyzed our combat, like, hey, what's missing? What can we do to improve? Like it was a back and forth process, and it improved the game. Like, it really improved the game.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things. Again, we could probably spend just like this entire cast talking about 2D versus 3D combat. That's a cast right in of itself. But you remind me of that game Pharaonic that we talked about, and yeah, that was one of those cases where you could feel that the developers are trying to add that kind of depth again, like that Dark Souls pacing and that heft to the combat. Again, that tactile nature, but it just didn't get there. Like you're really limited in 2D in terms of combat because of that. Like, when we played Death's Gambit, did you have a chance to play that one yet, Traevon?
No, I have not. Let me pull that up actually on my phone.
That is the kind of like, it's a 2D Dark Souls-y kind of game that came out earlier this year. And they were, again, trying to go for a very down-to-earth or very, again, that heft or that weight of the combat. You had a stamina system like in Dark Souls, but it didn't really feel like it was getting to that point because, again, in 2D space, you're not able to really show that impact. You're not able to really like stun enemies. You can't dance around them or dodge around them like you would in a Dark Souls game. It's that difference between like anyone here who's watched Bloodborne footage, for instance, you can see just how, I'm trying to think of a good word for it, like how impactful that combat can be with you trying to get around the enemies and get in for an attack. You can't really do that in 2D because you're just limited.
You're like confined. Now I had Dark Souls. Dark Souls started off as a 2D game, and Pharaonic itself said, "Hey, we're gonna draw inspiration from Dark Souls, but we're gonna go 3D. I think, cause I played a little bit of Pharaonic, right? I think then yeah, like it would have had more success. But is it Salt and Sanctuary? What's the one? No, Darkest Dungeon. Wait, what's the 2D? What was that big hit? It was a 2D Souls-like game.
It could either be a Salt and Sanctuary, or now Hollow Knight was more of a Metroidvania than it was a Souls-like. But I think you're probably thinking of Salt and Sanctuary. That was by Ska Studios.
I think so. Now that was the hit. That one was a big hit, right?
I would like to say yes. I don't know numbers. I know Hollow Knight has definitely earned more than what they've put into it, but
what's the Souls-like? I mean, the Souls-like one where the art style. Actually, let me pull it up. I'm gonna try pulling that up right now.
We're doing live research again, folks. That's another part of these casts.
Yeah, like this cast. Yeah, wait a minute. Let's see.
Yeah, it's Soul and Sanctuary. That was Ska. That came out in 2016. Dead Cells. Could you be thinking of that one?
Let's see. You said Dead what?
Dead Cells. That came out in August of this year.
See, Dead Cells is an interesting case study. Like I like looking at stuff for case studies. First of all, I didn't even know about Dead Cells until that fiasco with I don't know if you want me to say his name, but with the IGN guy. I'm not gonna say it.
Say his name? Yeah, I remember that one.
that guy. Actually, I forgot his name now. But yeah, when I went down a rabbit hole. Right, I was like, whoa. But that game caught my attention. This is when we were still 2D. And I'm looking at it, right? And what caught my attention was this guy released an article, like not that IGN guy, but one of the former devs, the guy who's assisting them with their marketing and stuff. He released an article. It's called "Breathing Life into Dead Cells," I believe. And that right there, he basically laid out a step-by-step blueprint for people who are trying to. It's in theory. I haven't really tried it yet. I had the idea for it about 2 years ago. Basically, have you read the article yet? The one I'm referencing. You have?
No. I'm sorry. I think I saw something on Gama Sutra. I don't think I had a chance to read it.
Right. He was basically saying that if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. They took their Dead Cells game. They approached streamers that had 0 to 5 views, and they made sure all of them were streaming it. From there, they moved up in tiers. And remember, from 0 to 5, 10 to 15. Hold on a sec. Sorry, I do apologize. So they were moving up in tiers of the amount of views until that, and then by that time it was circling around the internet, and it made it easier for them to approach the bigger streamers. But that was like the first time I've ever seen someone lay out like their like step by step on how, and in theory it should work if you have a bunch of small streamers playing the game. If a bigger streamer sees it, because I know they like to play, they play what's going to get them views, right? Yeah. So they're seeing all these other people are playing it. They're going to be like, I need to play that.
The Fortnite effect, I think.
Right. It's just, right. Oh, yeah, like how you have big time celebrities like, was it Drake? No, Drake had the Twitch. I don't know if he plays Fortnite. But there's some celebrities, they play Fortnite. But Dead Cells... That's a Metroidvania, though, right? It's not like a Souls-like, is it?
No, it's definitely more. It's kind of like a mix between the two. I mean, that's another rabbit hole we could jump into right there. But yeah, it had the combat was probably one of the best 2D ones I think I've seen. And again, it's very hard. I think there's so much happening in a 2D space that it can be very hard, I think, to keep things feeling grounded like that. Because even with Dead Cells, I started to feel I was like losing control of my character when like doing like a lot of actions at the same time.
They did. I've seen some gameplay of it based off of people's reactions, and then from what I've seen, they seem to have done it really well.
Yeah,
they did a good job. For us though, 2D wasn't gonna like. It got to a point where it wasn't like fans were. Oh, that's the other thing too. We realized that not that many people on the planet know about the game, which is that's a good thing actually. That means there is plenty of room to expand when it comes to building our audience. Like, yeah, like some people might say, "Oh no, this sucks." We don't have a big audience, but the fact that no one really on the planet knows, about it, that means there's so much room to improve when it comes to gaining an audience.
Yeah, and it's the same thing like with like the slow growth of game wisdom. I know I'm not going to wake up to find 10 million people subscribe to this channel tomorrow, but it gives me the room. That would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen. But it gives me the freedom to define exactly what I want my content to be. Like when people come, they're not going to find something that's being half-assed. They're going to find someone who knows what he's talking about. And like with something like with Bullock, like you're going to have plenty of time to work in 3D, and when it's time to make that big announcement, you're not just going to release like a 2-second prototype trailer. I'm sure you have something very big planned for that announcement to let everybody know.
We're working on something. Like after the Kickstarter, it made us just reassess how we approach our fans. That big announcement move, like with this new change, I think that's going to help out a lot because it's going to look completely different from what it did in the past in regards to just the feel of the game. I feel like it'll look cooler and more appealing to stream. Screenshots are like, I mean, we have some cool screenshots. But it's mainly development. When you're building the game, it's your product development. That's your game. Like you're developing a product, and then you're marketing. So we're improving the product so that way when we do our marketing, we're still putting out content, right? We're still putting out content for people to see, but we're also mainly focusing on the product development. So when we do put that content out, it's very appealing.
Yeah.
But there's just so much with it. The next step from here would be to we're putting out the demo because we've been putting out demos nearly on a monthly basis to our email list. And then I had the idea, I was like, why? Right now you can only get the game if you're like a subscriber, right? But then I really thought about it. Like I was thinking about how like the music industry does it. I was really thinking about, wait, where are the gamers at? Okay, Facebook group. I was just thinking. I'm like, well, they're going to these sites. I should make the game public, and I made the game public. And because it's the newest thing, it got some hits, it got some new downloads and stuff. But I think by having it public now, and and then I'm updating it, I think that will draw in more gamers that go to the site because there's millions of people visit that site a month. I've seen some statistics on it.
Are you on each.io at all, Traevon?
Yeah, I said that right. Did I just say that?
I don't think so. You may have cut out when you were saying what store you were on.
Oh yeah, itch.io.
Okay.
However you pronounce it. It was recommended to me by another developer. Shout out to Don, by the way. Don's working on Black Future 88. The game was cool. It's a 2D shoot 'em up. We post on that, but the key is the secret URL is only sent to our email subscribers. But I thought about it like, okay. The basis of marketing is you show your product where your fans are hanging out at, where they're looking at. So people that have it correct know when they're posting on social media and Reddit and all that other stuff. But once I really looked into it, it made more sense to me. Hence how we got that invite to Mexico. So join gaming groups on Facebook. It also made sense on itch.io for us to make the game public so people who go there to play games, they come across it as we're building up the audience. I'm not talking about as a launch, like launching the game. Like, no, we don't just post on a platform. No, this is like, it's almost like a social media update almost. But these are where gamers are going. So that's why it would make sense. Yeah, you're updating it. That's where the gamers go. People see you posting on it consistently. And if it looks good too, then it will pick up the traction. I'm not saying, if it looks good, it's automatically going to sell, but it's in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think talking more about the fan reaction and changing things up like that, I think that's a perfect segue into talking about kind of the Kickstarter and where you guys went from there following that. So,
the Kickstarter.
Yeah. So for longtime fans of Game Wisdom, we talked about you guys going on Kickstarter, I think, for the first and second casts. And I remember the first time you said you were originally going to push it back to do more work on it. So the Kickstarter went up on, looks like, I think that was early September, right? And then
September 5th.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it did not go as planned, I'm afraid. And
That's an
again,
understatement.
yeah, and I know it's one of those things where, like, when we talk about this before, many guests, that it's very easy to talk about when things succeed. It's another thing entirely to talk about when things don't. It's one of the reasons why the indie game failure workshop each year is just such a wealth of information for new and current developers. So, I guess my first question, and again, the last time we spoke, you were still in the early stages of preparing for the Kickstarter. So, during that time frame, like, what was your general strategy for the Kickstarter? Like, what was your game plan?
I like how you asked that question, because usually people don't really. I think they do kind of address their game plan, but really don't talk about it. They just say like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do this." So I'm gonna be completely transparent with you and your audience. So around December, it hit me. Build our email list. You'll see it all over the internet. You see what marketers. Your email list is key for various reasons, which that can make the podcast go on for like the longest time. But your email list is very important. A lot of people are gonna be like, "Email? Who looks at the email?" Trust me. One for instance, those emails you get, I'm pretty sure a lot of your is it safe to say a lot of your fans are game developers, or are they more gamer?
I think we skew more towards developer and enthusiasts, like people who want to go into game development.
All right, I'm gonna drop a bomb for you guys. Like, okay, so on Facebook, right? You know, when you come across an ad, like Phoenix Point, for instance, I didn't know about Phoenix Point until I seen an ad on there. I was like, what is this? Right? The reason why a lot of those ads work, and I'm not talking about boosting your posts. The reason why a lot of those ads work too, besides like you visiting associated websites and stuff that might be similar, with the email list, I could use that to target our fans on Facebook, like stuff like that. You can do a lot with Facebook ads and an email list as well. So release monthly demos, and as we're putting them out, fans would sign up. And one of the things I did was I was really thinking about who's our target audience. Like I really had to think about that for a moment. Like, who's our target audience? So I feel like we have 3 core target audiences. The last 2 I didn't realize until like about 2 weeks ago. I'm like, I wish I would have figured that out before the Kickstarter. So the first, our first target audience would be based off of cultural affinity. So people who are of Hispanic descent from Mexico all the way down to Central America, they're fans of the game. And that's an understatement in itself. I didn't believe it. I had the theory until I joined buy and sell groups in Mexico. Like, I know this is getting good. Join buy and sell groups. Now, remember, our email list was only about maybe 50 people, right? So I joined some buy and sell groups in Mexico for gamers, right? Because gamers are our audience. And I was like, let me try this out real quick. So I posted stuff from the game. Oh my God. I can show you screenshots. That thing like blew up. Obviously it didn't blow up. Otherwise we would have a different conversation. But the response was much more positive and much more engaging than it was in the past. That's what I mean by blow up. Like, it went up by 10 times the amount of engagements on a post. So let's say I post in the indie developer group, right? Maybe get about 3 likes, maybe 1 or 2 comments. If it's a trailer, I'll get a lot of comments, a lot of likes, because they're like some critiques and stuff, right? This was like, I'm posting directly to my target audience who are gamers. And they're like, whoa, like this is like that. You know, imagine you're scrolling down your Facebook timeline and you're seeing a game that just really catches your attention. You're like from a gamer perspective, okay? So that did well. Posted on Reddit. We posted in Mexico, like the Reddit thread in Mexico for Mexico itself. We've gotten like 72 upvotes on a few posts. It really went up there. I pissed off a few mods. Got banned for a week. Don't recommend it. Hey, was it worth it though? Yes, it was worth it, because what I learned from that, yeah, the power of your target audience, really focusing on your target audience. You focus on them, everyone else, they don't really matter at that point. So the reception is good. I'm in the buy and sell groups. Every time I would post something about the game, they say they would want it. I'm like, yeah, not a problem. What's your email? I'll send it to it there. So get their email, add it to my email list. I would send it out through itch.io, the URL, to get the game when the demo was ready. So it's treating it like it was like a comic book thing. Like, you look forward to the next comic book issue. So we were doing that, and the goal was to gain as many email signups as possible, so we can use that for retargeting ads and stuff. We got to the point where I don't know where I posted it at. Somebody emailed me out of nowhere asking us to go to an event called Game Dev Experience. They have it yearly in Mexico City itself, where gamers go in and play games in Mexico City, and people show off their video games. So I am not going to do the financial reasons, but my two teammates, they took a plane ticket. They went down to Mexico City. They made it happen. We gained a lot of feedback about the game, about why they like the game, what games do they play. That in itself really helped. Like a lot of people who like Bullock, they like action games, they like adventure games, they like RPGs, and they like strategy games. I made a scale of the amount of people. So the top tier on the scale, no, it wasn't. Was it adventure? It was action, then adventure, and RPG, and then strategy. So that in itself, we ended up with about so from December to August, just from targeting that audience, we went from like 52 to like 500. So I thought, hey, we're ready for the Kickstarter. But then that goes back to the whole like our audience that we had for the game wasn't big enough at the time. And that's something you hear a lot of developers. Every time someone's Kickstarter fails, oh, our audience isn't big enough. We didn't build a big enough fan base. Right. It actually puts it into perspective as well. But at first, it was kind of soul crushing. But it was very exciting to know, like, wait a minute, put things into perspective. I was like, I know where to go from here. Another thing was to get as many email signs as possible so we can do retargeting, ads, and stuff. I even ran an ad that got us two additional backers because of the email list. Now, whether they were from the email list itself or if they were like lookalike audiences, I don't know. But it worked, and I'm like, we need to do more email. We'll do more Facebook ads, but not at this moment. I'm talking about like in the future. We're not gonna just do an ad. In regards to the current, go ahead. I can elaborate on who our additional target audience is as well.
Okay. Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you about, Traevon, I was looking at the Bullock Kickstarter, and I noticed that it was entirely in Spanish, I believe. And I guess the question, though, I'm sure everybody's wondering is, I guess why? Like, why was there no like English translation for it?
Right. Let's rewind real quick. Also, when I was posting in groups, I got approached around the Kickstarter time. I was getting approached by YouTubers in Mexico wanting to showcase the game. We even got published in a gaming magazine in Mexico as well. It's on. If you go to the news section and you type in Buluk Mayan Warfare and go to the news section of Google, you'll see the articles from Level Up. So we had YouTubers approaching us to showcase the game as well. I can elaborate onto why I think not many of them ended up streaming the game. I can elaborate on that later. In regards to why it was in Spanish, because our majority of our fans at that point, they were mainly in Mexico. Like at that point, because of how we were targeting from December. Remember, so we went from, like I said, 50 email signups, right? From December. And then when we started targeting gamers in Mexico, it shot up to like 500. Like that's 10 times the amount. So at that point, I was saying, well, I know my target audience. I'm just going to focus on my target audience. So we put it in Spanish. There was some technical, no, I won't even call it technical difficulties. There were some blunders. Like at first, we had the site. I remember I sent out an email that day saying, hey, the Kickstarter's going up at this time. We launched Kickstarter. I realized that it was in English because I thought, the translate pages and stuff. Like we translate a page. Well, on Kickstarter, guys, I'm just letting you know, if you are targeting another like language group, like if you're targeting a different language, just know that Kickstarter does not translate it completely. Kickstarter only translate your stuff. So that's why that same day we were scrambling. We went back in, made it into Spanish, but by that time people started backing stuff. So stuff were getting locked in. Once something's back, once someone backs something, that reward is locked in. That means you can't even change the language on it. Like I said, I did not know that Kickstarter does not. And I had to talk to a few people in Mexico. I said, hey, what are you seeing on your end of things right now? Tell me, is it English or Spanish? What's going on here? So for people, if you're targeting a different language, just know Kickstarter will translate. When they do a translate, when you have it translate, or when you set your settings on the bottom of the Kickstarter page itself, it only translates their stuff. It does not translate your campaign items. And that includes your description, your description, you know, like that body of text that you write. It does not translate out. So that was a blunder in itself. I hope that explains why it was in Spanish though. Like to me, it makes sense. If my target audience, if majority of our fans were in Mexico, then yeah, I wanted to have it tailored to them. And we had assumed, Will, mainly me, I'm like, okay, it's been doing this well all these months. We got invited to this event. YouTubers want to stream it in Mexico. All this stuff is happening. Of course it's going to be a hit now. That's not what happened.
Yep, and I guess, and then following that up, then that was around the time you started to speak to more developers. You said you sent 2 of your team members down to the game dev in Mexico City, the meetup, and that was kind of when you got the feedback regarding moving the game into 3D. Is that right?
Not necessarily. Someone randomly brought it up. I guess someone randomly said, "Oh yeah, this would be cool if it was in 3D." So when the team came back, they're like, "Oh yeah," because we had a meeting about this because we were hyped. We were super hyped. Like, this is gonna be amazing. Because if you've seen the photos of the event and stuff, if you've seen all of that, and like I said, we got published in a foreign magazine. All this stuff was happening. We're like, of course, we're like, okay, let's scale this up. This is what's gonna happen. No, that's the other thing too. Is you gotta be careful when you get caught up in the hype. You have to take a step back and see what's really going on, and that's why I'm happy now because I know still a majority of the people majority of the people in Mexico, they don't know about the game still. It's still a very small percentage. So the 3D, it came up in our meeting when we were discussing like player feedback, and then it was on my mind. And then when the Kickstarter, about 2 weeks in, the Kickstarter, about 2 weeks into the Kickstarter, it was running through my mind, and I was like, you know what? This is a chance to do something different. Not like different in the sense of like we need to do a complete 180, but we need to reevaluate. And that was my thing too. Even after the first day, I was looking at the results, and I was really looking at it like, after this, we really need to do a reevaluation. So in the middle of it, did some thinking, did some talking to the team, and really thought about it. And then we seen Assassin's Creed Odyssey was coming out. And I'm looking at it like in the back of my mind, like they're in Greece, and I'm like, they're gonna go. Like I'm like, these guys. If you look at what they're doing, like they might try to go. They like I get that feeling of where they're trying to go next, and I was like, nope. Let me turn down my phone. I was like, nope. We're gonna shut it down. I was like, team, I think we need to do it. So I made that switch to 3D. We're claiming that space before someone moves in and does that. Because if they went to ancient Egypt and they went to ancient Greece, it's about a matter of time before they decide, hey, we should go to ancient Mexico.
Yeah. And I remember for our first cast, I think you explicitly said that one of the main inspirations for Bullock was the fact that nobody else was doing Mayan mythology or Mayan civilization at that time. So that I don't think I want. I hope you don't get to that point where you're almost on the game. All of a sudden you hear Assassin's Creed Mayan edition coming in 2025 or something like that. That could be very interesting. But one of the things. You're kind of like cutting in and out a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I see it on the YouTube stream itself. But am I cutting out here?
Let me see.
'Cause I can still hear you.
Yeah, it's just like a little bit started. I don't know if that's an internet thing or a Discord thing or both.
Right, I understand.
All right, but yeah, like when it comes to kind of, let me see, it kind of like cut out for a second there. All right, maybe we can try. Let's see if it improves. If not, we'll try cutting off the video and then turning it back on and see if that does anything.
That's perfect. 'Cause I can still see you on the YouTube stream. You know, it's like segments behind.
Yeah. Okay, it seems to be a little bit better now. Okay. But, yeah, getting back to your point regarding listening to your fans and then using that as a way of moving forward. When you announced, like, kind of more the focus on the 3D design and more on the action, I guess, did you get any pushback from fans regarding that change?
No, there was no pushback, actually. It was just like, whoa, this looks really good. Yeah, like, it was just, this looks really good. There was no pushback whatsoever from the fans. It's just, with 3D, it made it easier to carry out the vision. Like, to actually, Bullock Kickstarter presentation after the gameplay was really good. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Thank you. I know what he's talking about. He's talking about the after the video where I went to depth about the mechanic, about how the game works.
Yeah.
That, but updated though, much better. But not another Kickstarter, just that video itself. I know what he's talking about.
Yeah. So it definitely sounds like you didn't meet with. There was no pushback. It seems like everything kind of clicked together to move to 3D, and that's definitely good because, again, we've seen this. I'm sure you've done your research as well, Traevon, about how things can go pear-shaped when a developer has to make that change. Because I'm sure I know we have certainly talked about on many of these casts that when you see a developer have to make like a massive structural change to their design, that's usually a red flag that something's gone horribly wrong. But with Bullock, I know one of the things that we talked about in the last cast was kind of your overall long-term plan. Like, you weren't doing these things in like days or weeks. Like you were planning things out months, if not years in advance. So I guess with that said, with regards to Bullock and kind of like your overall vision, have things been like upset at all in like the long-term spree of things compared to when we last spoke?
No, it has not been upset. It just makes our past plans, it makes more sense now what we wanted to put into the game. It makes more sense now doing it in 3D. So had we introduced it in 2D, it would be like, okay. But now it fits perfectly with the 3D. Like, when we went 3D, everything just meshed together. Like, what we were trying to do was better suited for 3D itself. That's why I think it's working because, like I said, I know I keep saying this, but what we were originally trying to do was better off for 3D.
Kind of something that was, kind of like trying to fit like a square peg into a round hole kind of situation.
Right, and it makes it easier for us to tell the story. I don't mean story as in story within the game. I mean the story of the game when we're showing it to gamers, when we're reaching out to them, how we target our target audience. Like, for instance, like, hey, if you like Witcher, you like new Assassin's Creed games, because Assassin's Creed is different. It's completely different now from in the past. Yeah. If you like Witcher 3, Witcher 2, like, if you like the combat of that and the combat of Assassin's Creed, then you're like the combat then of Bullock. And to say that in 2D, to say that when we had the 2D, people they can really do the connections. Like, it's kind of hard sometimes for people to connect the dots when they're not working on it. By going 3D now, and now it makes it easier now to connect the dots, like for the fans to connect the dots. And in regards to the blowback as well, like I said before, like, at the Kickstarter, I realized how small our fan base was and how no one on the planet really knew about it. So I was like, yeah, the fans, there are fans, but it's like I can change. We were debating on changing the K to a C because that's the original name of their God of War sacrifice, the Maya. Because not that many people know about the game, it's not going to cause this mass amount of confusion. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna be this whole massive update. It's not like, oh yeah, YouTube's down. Like, no, it's not like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And as what Wendrick's saying in chat about the cost of 3D going down, and it's very interesting. And like I said, there's definitely like 2 or 3 podcasts worth of topics we could jump into. And if it wasn't late at night, I would, and we have other things to do, I would. But it is very interesting about how 3D has really shifted for a lot of games, and even as we said about how it changes the design of a title. Like again, like I was just talking to another friend of mine earlier tonight in terms of like when we were talking live, and we were talking about kind of the death of a 3D platformer and how that kind of genre definitely had, I think, a lot of growing pains in terms of what it means to just be a pure platformer. But then we talk about a genre like combat and like the action side, and that's a genre that really does fit within that 3D space. And as you said, like it wasn't a case of you sitting there going, you know, we moved to 3D, it's going to be a pain, we got to change this, we got to do all that. It's more like 3D just clicks with everything else that we were already trying to develop for this game.
Right, it would have made more sense. Like, we should have did that in the past. My original thought about it was, I approached it 2D because I said, hey, the scale, because I know our resources, so I said the scale.
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, that's actually not. This is gonna be. That's not even a problem. The scale and not the scale. You gotta understand. If you understand what you're working with, then you know where to scale up and where not to scale up at.
Yeah. And
the whole thing about the 3D platformers going away, that's like, that goes back to why God of War is no longer how it used to be. Even though it's not a platformer in itself, it's that trend in video games. Like, gamers are shifting now. Like, yeah, there's still a place for your super fast paced games. Like, I believe they're coming out with a new Bayonetta, maybe. Like, stuff like that, it still has its place. But because of God of War is like it being mainstream and stuff, they're looking at games like, I know they're looking at games like Last of Us. You notice how games now, a lot of action games, the camera's like zoomed in some more, closer to the character. It's like that almost over the shoulder. It's not as super chaotic, or it's even like Dark Souls almost. I think Dark Souls may have had an effect, like some kind of effect on how games are moving. Which that brings me back to Aztez in itself, like why it went how it went, because the gamers they shifted away from that kind of stuff. But like I said, there is still a place for super fast paced games. Because I heard I come out with another Bayonetta.
Yep, and it just comes down to, again, how do you present that gameplay to an audience? And again, that's another, oh my god, that's another hour we can add. Like, every topic we come up with, that it adds another hour to this call. But
right, you're just like, go up. Remember we had to split the live cast into 2 parts?
Because we just ran out of time. We had more things to talk about.
Right.
Yeah, now, with Bullock, and again, making these changes and such, I guess, I know when we last spoke, again, you were talking about playing this out for like years. I think the last time we saw, I think you were talking about like a 2020, maybe 2021 release for it.
Right, we're releasing in 2019. So it's actually the summer of 2019 coming up. And then after the Mac and PC, we will be aiming for the consoles.
Okay.
For 2020.
Good. And I guess here's a question for you, and this one, again, is another big topic, but I want to get your thoughts on this. As you said, correct me if I'm wrong, and remind the audience, how long have you been working on Bullock from the original concept?
Oh, from the original concept? Yeah. So Bullock in itself, the research phase of it, the research for my senior project back in college, it started in 2013. So, let's see. I want to say, was it fall 2013? Yeah, it had to be fall 2013. Yeah, fall 2013. And then I started like building out the environments itself in 2014. And then I did some improvements on it. And then I stopped. And then late 2015, I said, hey, like, yeah, this needs to become a game. I built up the level. And then early 2016, I approached our programmer. and our UI artist about it. So as a team, we've been working on it since February 2016.
Okay.
I started on the game itself about October of 2015, like planning it, and then building the actual environments was December 2015. But the concept itself was back in 2013.
So, and like the reason why I'm bringing this up is that we've spoken to developers again about that challenge of working a very long time on a game. Obviously, with Buluk Mayan Warfare, and again, I remember you said this even back on our first cast, this was kind of like your dream project. Like, this is something you want to make. This is not, somebody telling you, I demand you make me a Aztec theme action strategy or action adventure game. And with something, when we talk about these long-term projects, there's always that risk of burnout. And I'm sure for any indie or even current developers or like more established ones watching us right now, I'm sure they're probably nodding their head about this, that when we're talking about projects in the years, 3, 4, 5 plus, it's very hard to keep that motivation going. And I wanted to ask you, Traevon, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you compartmentalize the fact that, this game is still in development, like it's not coming out relatively soon? Like, what keeps you motivated to keep making this game?
I think, where do I even start? Like I said, so it's almost like the equivalent of, I'll throw an example out. If I really like Star Wars, and then wait, I'm building a Star Wars game now, I'm pretty sure, and it's like the game I want to build, then that's not gonna. It'd be different if I was like, hey, like if it was a game I didn't really want to build. But even then, I feel like I'm not properly explaining it because this was a senior project, so it's like a passion project almost. Like I said, I've been working. Like the concept came to me in like 2013. Now I think about it, 2011, like December 2011. It was like I wrote a little short story. Even if you want to go further back, now that I really, really think about it, more year, I was like, what if we had a game? Because I remember that was like the first time I played Civilization Revolution. I said, wouldn't this be cool if you can actually play as the warrior in the game in itself? So this is something that's been running in my head since like I was in like high school. So how do I avoid? You said burning out.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, no. Hold on now. Now, there are times now where I take mini breaks. I take mini breaks, okay, like throughout the week. So sometimes, like, there'll be a day where I don't work on the game. I just play video games. I just play video games because I'm still a gamer. Like, even though I'm building a game, I'm still a gamer. I like playing video games. So I just take a break. And this being the game that I really want to build, and really, actually, I want to play the game too. Like the latest update, I'm like, whoa, this is fun. I'm not playing Odyssey right now. Nope. I'm like, maybe we had ship battles, open world. We're not doing that. I'm like, oh yeah, now all this needs now is some open world, and then I'm done. We're not doing that though. So it's kind of hard. That's something that's kind of hard to put into words. Like it'd be different now. If you say, "Hey, Traevon, like, how does the team function?" Or even like, "Oh, how do you market? How do you build the game?" But to like not burn out on something that I've been working on for the longest time, I honestly don't know how to put that into words. Maybe it's a passion project, like something I really want to do. It's kind of like with, Josh, just like with you in Game Wisdom. You said you've been, I believe you said since 2012, right?
Yep.
Okay, it's kind of like the same way you were able to do that. And I don't mean to flip the question on you, but to put it into perspective. So it's like the person out there who's listening and they're in the same situation, they're like, oh, like it clicks with them. It's kind of like motivation. It's like motivation almost. Yeah. You can't really, like, incentive is an outside factor. Motivation is internal. So if a person has no motivation, no ambition whatsoever, you can't really help them. Like, you can't. It's an internal thing. You get what I'm saying?
Yep, and it reminds me a lot of when I spoke with John Schaefer, who's been working on the title At the Gates now. His original Kickstarter was... Where is it? That was done in 2013 was the original Kickstarter for that game. And even with that passion, he did run into some issues of just burning out in development. And there was a time where he just disappeared off the face of the earth, kind of thing. And he's back now working on that game. But I remember we did a
What's it called?
At the Gates. You may have to type in At the Gates John Schaefer to find it, because there's plenty of other At the Gates out there. And I remember when I spoke with him about this earlier this year, about trying to get back into it, he said that this was a game he wanted to make. And like I said, that's always the double-edged sword when it comes to independent game development. That you are able to literally make your dream game. But it's always that challenge of tempering that with actually trying to make it. And like as you said, with Bullock and making that jump from 2D to 3D, this was something within your wheelhouse. As you were just saying and joking, like, you could certainly sit there and go, you know what, I want to add in full ship sailing, and let's add in a stealth mini game, and I know, let's throw in a battle royale mode. You could have add its own battle royale mode. You can certainly do all that stuff, but would that keep this project going? Would you be able to actually create all that? And that's always that big challenge.
Right. You also gotta, like I said, you have to be aware of your resources too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why I consulted the team first before.
Oh yeah.
Going full 3D. I spoke with our programmer.
Yeah.
Like, we have conversations too where also like, hey, like, how do you feel about if we added this to the game? And now, we're also in that phase now where it's like, I have to be careful and ask myself, like, is this feature creep? Yeah. Like, I'm like, no, because that's originally what was supposed to go in the game. But feature creep to me, let's see. No, it wouldn't be feature creep. Like, you have to. Then again, though, like, to be honest, I've been, like, the whole, like running a team and stuff, I've been doing that since, like, that's something. The team dynamic and stuff, and the project.
I'm sorry, you cut out there when you said how long you've been doing team management for.
Since college.
Okay.
I was the president of our game development club, so I found out real quickly like what motivates someone to do something. Like, I understand that. What was your original question? It was about resource.
Yeah, resource management, and again, like trying to go too much into a game.
Right, you have to understand your team.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, I'm not gonna sit here and say, like, hey, like, I want crowds in my video game. Like, I'm not gonna say I want crowds in this game without, like, I need to know, like, okay, my animator schedule, my programmer schedule, like how much time they want to put into this. I consultant first can just say like, hey, do this, you know, like I need to speak with them. It's kind of like if you have a crew.
Mm-hmm.
Can we scale this building? Like, how high can we climb up? I'm not gonna say, hey guys, we're gonna take, like, yeah, it'd be cool to like get to that highest point, but I also have to know like the resources of our team, like the capabilities. Saying like, hey, all right, guys, can we? That's why whenever we ask them before we ask them into the game, before we do something too, I'll say like, hey guys, I'll ask the individual. I say like, hey, how do you feel about this right here? So if I say like, hey, I want a Spartan kick. Like, hey, like, are you Spartan kick? I asked the programmer, how will that fit into the game? Will that make sense on the controller scheme? Do you think that makes sense on the controller scheme? It's not like it's not like asking a vote. Like, no, it's thinking critical about it and who's involved in that process, and then their time, their energy. You get what I'm saying?
Yep. And
so,
And I can just imagine like a conversation like the programmer leaves work Friday, comes back Monday, and you tell him, guess what, our game's 3D now. It's just like completely out of the blue, like how they would respond to that. Exactly.
That's why something like that, you have, like, it's one thing to say like, oh yeah, this level is going to be at nighttime or something, right? Instead of being daytime, or we're changing this many enemies in the level, just whatever. Like, you have to, like I said, you have to know, like, you have to know your team. You have to know. I can't say common sense. You have to know.
Yep.
Like a 3D, it's like a decision. Like, you need to know like who's involved and who's it gonna affect. So like with the 3D thing, our UI artist. And I brought it to the team. So first I cleared with the programmer, and then I talked to our UI artist, and then from there I brought it to the rest of the team. But yeah, it's like different phases. It's like almost like checks. I wouldn't say checks and balances. It's just like, like I said, if you have a crew, you have to, like, let's say like you're in one department and you're working with other departments, you gotta know, like, hey, is this feasible right here? Like, is this feasible? You can't just say charge, you know?
Yeah. And again, like, it's just solid group management and business management. And if your project, as in the case handling with Bullock, if your project is going to be made that much better because of the decision and everybody's on board, why not do it, basically?
Exactly. Exactly. It'd be different now if I said, let's make this open world. Then that in itself, yeah, let's make this open world. Like I said, the environments were already tailored. The environments were built in a way where it was just rearranging them. That's literally what it comes down to, is just rearranging them and then adjusting like the targeting. You gotta know your inventory. It's like if you're on a ship, you have to know like the capabilities. You need to know, like you're on a ship. You need to know your crew. You need to know the capability of the equipment in front of you. If you don't know it and your crew, you're gonna sink. Or if you're on an airplane, like.
All right. I want to do a quick time check here. We are about an hour and 13 in. It's about 9:13 my time. So I figure we'll probably going to get going in maybe the next 15, maybe 20 minutes tops. So that works for you, Traevon?
Right. Oh, the stream. The little gameplay.
Yeah, I want to get to that. And for people watching us right now live, if you have any questions for Traevon regarding Bullock, please get them in now, because this will be final call for any questions. Now,
roll call.
Yeah. Now, one other question I forgot to ask you, with regards to moving the game from 2D to 3D, in terms of the level designs themselves, are the levels in Bullock going to be hard-coded, or will there be some procedural or random element to it?
Oh. When you mean hard code, I get what you're saying. Hard coded is in not procedural.
Yes.
Not random. No, yeah, it's gonna be hard coded. There's no, it's not procedural. It's not random. If anything, it was procedural, it would be how we would generate our terrain.
Okay.
Like that would be it, because it would be how our terrain would be generated depending on the level. Like for instance, if you're not attacking a city, we have skirmish levels. That's where like the enemy piece meets your piece on the campaign map, and there's no city. You're gonna fight on an open battlefield. So you're gonna fight like you fight the wilderness in the forest and on the hills. So that's like the only random thing would be how we generate the terrain. But then that is hard coded. So it's like I'm going in there, hand picking. Like we're building this stuff.
All right. And I guess one other design question for you, and then we'll switch over to the game footage. Do you see Bullock being like a replayable game, like in terms of people wanting to replay the campaign, or is this going to be more like of a straight, play for 8 to 10 hours, however long it is, and then, we've seen it all kind of thing?
It would have to be replayable. That goes back to, okay, like I said before, you can use different weapons in the game. The weapons, each weapon, it plays differently. There's research.
Okay.
And when it's turn by turn, you're researching. So that means by the end of the game, you can have one path to research and not the other path. The way, like I said, certain levels, you have different ways to get to the end point of the level. That's another replayability. And ideally, we're supposed to have 4 factions in the game. That's ideally. So you have your different factions, because the factions put you at a different starting point on the map.
Okay.
So yeah, that itself, so there's a different story to that. It's supposed to increase replayability. So research, weapons, armor. There's a lot of armor. Like I would use Odyssey as an example, how they keep giving you all this armor. Like that's what Bullock's going to do.
Okay, great. All right. So in that case, Traevon, if you want to load up the footage you want to show for Bullock, definitely feel free to do so now. You're going to see his video probably cut in like the next 10 to 15 seconds as he switches computers. But I'm sorry?
Go ahead. I was going to say, like, This is in editor, by the way, guys. This is like while the game is being developed, so you're seeing like some behind the scenes stuff.
Ooh, yes. And I'll switch myself once the footage is ready, Traevon. I'll switch it to full, or it'll take the majority of the screen here. So if you want to do that now, get things ready, definitely feel free. But while you are doing that, I figure this will be a great time for my kind of plugs for Game Wisdom. That will be a great way of killing the getting that time going. But while Traevon's getting things set up, for people watching this live or recorded, be sure to check out our Patreon channel link down below, as well as my first book on game design. I'm working on a second one now. You can find ad-free, if you want this video ad-free and uncut, check out patreon.com/gwbicer to subscribe that way. And if you are a developer looking to come on and talk about your game or game design in general, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We're always looking for new guests. But hopefully, hopefully Traevon will come back on in a second while I'm busy trying to stall for time. But while we're waiting for that, yeah, like I said, we've been talking to Traevon now for at least, I think, 2 years, maybe a little bit more than that. So it's definitely interesting to see how much things have come along. And again, about the challenge of game development. And as it's definitely a great example of Bullock that no plan survives first contact like that. And you do have to sometimes make those pivots. And it's good to hear that with that move to 3D, that the pivot kind of worked, it kind of all fell into place. Because as we've said, there are many times where developers have to make those massive changes halfway to even, fearing they're 3/4 of the way through development, that can completely wreck a game like that. And it's what we always say, that the earlier you establish your core gameplay loop and exactly what you want to do and what the fans want out of your game, everything else should fall into alignment after that. But he is still trying to get things going. The great part is that my UI blocks all like the Discord information that you can't see right now on that left-hand side. But as soon as he comes back on, we will show off that footage. We'll see if there's any final questions, and then we'll wrap things up. I do have some game streaming planned for tonight. I want to do some more platforming games, unless anything else strikes my fancy, as research for my second book. But
Josh, can you hear me?
Yep, can you hear me?
Right. So if screen share, so I need to install the software then, right?
You may be able to do that directly through Discord. Let me see if you're using the browser version.
Right. You just add it to Chrome, I believe. So it's communicating with cooperating websites.
Again, for people watching this live or recorded right now, this is always the fun of doing something live. And we gotta quickly change things up. Okay, wait. I'm seeing the endless window. Okay. So that is popping up. Let me switch things over to full here and see how things look. Okay. If you want to make that screen share, let me see. Wait, do I do that on? I think I do that on my end. Hold on 1 second. Okay, there you go. Your screen is now full on this end. Okay.
So it's full on this end then, right?
Yeah, everyone can see. They're not able to see the full thing, like just like the left-hand side.
Hold on, let me bring it up on YouTube. Let me bring up YouTube on my laptop just so I can kind of see what everyone's seeing. Let's see here. Let's see, why is it not? Oh, so did I mess that up?
Oh, everything just got very funky there.
See, I need to figure out how to full screen it on my end. Let's see.
What I can do, I think what may help. Let's see. I'm going to. Let me see how we're going to do this here. Alright, it's going to get a little bit weird for everybody watching this live. I'm going to try and use my demonstration view for this. 1 second. Let's see. Okay, you're seeing that. If I pull this up here, okay, there you go. You won't be able to see the chat for this part, folks, but let me see. If I make this full now, If you want to make it, if you want to pull up your window full screen, everybody should be able to see it.
Full screen. Oh, like that.
Yeah. Oh.
But I need.
There we go.
Is it working now? Oh yeah. YouTube. All right, guys. Oh dang. So this is an educational experience for you guys. For those of you who don't know, this is the editor. This is where we build the game at and stuff. Let me just show you the campaign map real quick. The reason why I'm showing you the campaign map, and let me make sure I turn down the volume on this end. Wait. Ooh, this might be too loud. We'll find out. Can you hear it?
I cannot. Oh wait.
Okay.
I just heard a little bit of it.
All right. So right now it's in Spanish because in the game we localized it for. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We localized the game for English and Spanish. Right now it's defaulting to Spanish. This is our campaign map. Think like Total War and Civilization. This is where you interact with your enemies and your cities. So all your cities right now that are blue, purple, those are yours. You own those. Red cities, they're your enemy cities. This piece right here is the player piece. This piece right here is the enemy piece. This is in the Yucatan region. So this is for the Shu Dynasty. They're one of the factions that you play as. If you look at the rest of the campaign map, it's not developed. We didn't put any cities there because we haven't gotten to that part yet. We're focusing on one faction right now. So this is the rest of the campaign map.
Okay.
So this is the edge of Mexico going into Guatemala, Honduras, and Belize. So, let's see. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So back to here. Okay. I'm gonna bring up the barracks real quick, or let me bring in the temple where you do your research at.
Okay. While you're pulling that up, so each city on the map, that in of itself will be essentially its own level. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So then right here, this is where you do your research at. You can research. So like here, you default to 3 warriors at the start of the game. So as turns progress, you can unlock more warriors to switch out in the battlefield. You have your spells here. And just like in XCOM and any other game with research, when you research an item, it unlocks new research. So there will be new items and spells here. So right now you have obsidian, right? You're supposed to start off you start off with flint, you move up to obsidian, and you move up to either jade or steel. You get the steel option with the Spaniards show up. And this is the enchanted jade. Regular jade is your currency. So think of like gold almost. Yeah. You see how it says how many turns it takes to unlock it? So then let me switch over to the armory real quick. So I used to call it building weapons and armor, but people say craft. So I feel like craft might be more marketable. So this is where you craft your weapons and armor. So here, you just select. Let's see here. So like so it costs different resources too. Like up here is cotton. This is obsidian. This right here, I forgot what the blue one was, but the green is your jade though. So you're getting these resources when you conquer a level, so you can build more weapons and armor to outfit your warriors. Think like XCOM in a way. So you can even see right here. Yeah. And then as for the barracks now, oh, you know what? I'm not going to bring that up. The barracks is where you customize the warrior, though. I'll have to show you guys screenshots. Let me go straight to a level, though. Okay. All right, guys, this is it. Let's see, do I have the audio on? Let's see, I have the audio. Oh. It's loading. Don't worry. Okay. So, as you see here, full 3D, guys, you can strafe.
Okay. Dodge around. Yeah, and you can really tell the difference in like how the combat looks in 3-dimensional space than it does with like your original footage in 2D.
Exactly.
So while you're showing off the combat, one other question about kind of like the cities and the structure of the game: can people take back, or can like the factions take back cities? Ooh.
Of course. Yes, they can.
All right, so I see you just switched to another character. And 1 second, I just want to make sure that everyone can still see it. Good. And we'll pull back up the chat when we're done here. There we go.
So that's the blood shield. Your blood protects you from spells. Think of, I believe it's called Yard in Witcher. So you put up a protective shield. See, I'm gonna incinerate this guy. Hold on a sec. Oops. I didn't have enough blood, so that's not gonna work. And you do have light and heavy attacks that you can lace together. So, for instance, those are light and these are heavy. Hold on.
Okay. And
you have to lace them together.
And I think I remember when we last spoke, like the various weapons. Like the UI you just did when you switch weapons. That basically switches your soldier, right?
Yes. See, I'm gonna try to show you guys something cool. Hold on. He's gonna swing.
Let's see.
Oops, that didn't work out as well as I thought it would, but okay.
I guess what enemy types are you thinking about having with Bullock? Like in terms of like different weapon types, different types of enemies, like support, stuff like that.
So right here you have your peasants. Okay, I know you guys are seeing that right there. That looked cool, right? So you have your peasants, like these ones right here. They're your basic enemies. So some of them, they're just low level enemies. They're conscripts to the army. So they're not that strong. They use the mock Weddle. They don't even have a shield. Let me kill them real quick. The next level above should be something called a veteran. The veteran will have a cotton vest, like how this Jaguar warrior has, and they will have a shield. So when you try to attack them, they auto block. So you have to do stuff like maneuver around them, or see, you have to maneuver around them, or you have to use magic to kill them. Okay. To damage them. Above that, you have your archers. They're exactly what they sound like. They fire bows and they fire bows at you. After that, you have your Jaguar Knight and your Eagle Warrior. They look like eagles and jaguars. So the Eagle Warrior uses a spear, whereas the Jaguar Knight will use a great sword, and they do a lot of damage. And they're hard. They don't stagger as much either. And when we were doing this too, we were analyzing other games. Like, okay, how is it in other games they make certain enemies more intimidating, and one of them is just staggering. So on those higher level enemies, they're not supposed to stagger when you hit them with normal attacks. And then you have the enemy priests on here. They can use magic. They will. You won't see them in this level, but they're functional right now, where they will fire a fireball at you. And since it's in full 3D now, we can place them behind other warriors. So when you damage those warriors, the priest will heal them. So now you're thinking, hey, who should I prioritize? Do I prioritize the priest or one of these enemies that deal out a lot of damage? Because now the priest, like I said before, can damage you with a fireball, like how I just launched, but it can also heal heal enemies. So you should make that a priority, because they're like a medic and like a like they can heal and damage. So that's pretty much the new gameplay on here. Oops.
Yep. It definitely, again, as we've been talking, you can definitely tell like the difference in the design. Like it looks almost like a completely different game in 3D than with the 2D footage that you had originally.
Exactly, completely different. It fits the tone of the game. Like I feel like it fits the vision of what we're trying to do, and you can even go up these pyramids as well. Oops. Shit. So I'm accidentally killing myself on this game because I keep sacrificing health. Like players like me, I like to take a lot of like risk, so I will like sacrifice my own health so I can deal out a lot of damage. You see how he just stabbed himself? Yeah. That's pretty much it, Josh. Unless they want to see more.
I think that should be good. Looks like a finishing move. Oh, there he goes. Yeah, not bad.
Option button real quick.
Alright, I'm going to switch us back then to our normal setup. 1 second. There. Let's see. Yeah, not bad. So, as Traevon, oh, he's coming back on, and let me make you full. Let me make that full again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me? Test, test. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Can you hear me at all, Traevon?
You know what? Hold on. It's me.
Oh wait.
Sorry about that. It was muted.
Okay, no problem. There we go. Oh, I'm hearing some feedback, or I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, it's probably feedback because
Okay.
I was doing the switch.
Alright, cool. But yeah, definitely looks very much, like I said, it does look like a different game or a brand new game compared to some of the older footage. So, with that said, I have one more gameplay related question for you, Traevon, and then just probably a few like logistics related stuff, and then we'll wrap it up for the evening. So,
Okay.
One thing that I've been curious about, you've mentioned, of course, when the Spanish and the conquistadors arrive as kind of the end game of Bullock. Now, when we last spoke, when there was more of that grand strategy, the grand campaign focus, I think we talked about stuff like Sid Meier's colonization. Like when they show up, everything else stops. With the redesign to 3D, what does the conquistadors arriving mean to the game?
Pretty much the same thing. They arrive. So we are still debating on if the players can join them and be okay. You understand when they and you will fight the Aztecs in this game because right after because you're gonna hear it in the game, like it's gonna be a cutscene and you will see like the Aztec city being destroyed and you will hear like, hey, they just got destroyed because they were in contact with each other. So you will end up fighting conquistadors alongside enemy Mayans alongside the Aztec army that remains. Like. So we're debating on that you should have the option to join them and then take over the rest of the Mayan region. Because remember, there's other factions as well. Remember, I showed you the big campaign map.
Yeah.
So right now, the faction that we're focusing on, they're in the Yucatan, but there's other region stuff. So, and the conquistadors did this. Like people would join them to help take over the other tribes. So it's either you join them or you not, or you reject their offer, or you might just have them when they show up. They're trying to turn everyone against you. So they show up and they're literally they're turning everyone against you, and you have to like fight them. You have to stop them from taking over your cities. So it continues the same way, except the conquistadors are there, the enemy Aztecs are there. The conquistadors are going to be harder because of their technology, and you got to make that decision. Do you because at that point, do you go to magical enchanted weapons like along the natural path, or do you go their route and you steal weaponry and steal armor? So you have to like make that decision, but it is supposed to be hard to defeat them though. Yeah, and they will take over city by city.
Are is the conquistador arrival, is that a trigger by like the story or by like a number of turns in the game?
Story. Think of anyone's played Shogun 2. Think of Realm Divide. Remember how in Shogun 2 where you conquer a certain amount of cities, the Shogun sees you as a threat, and then they step in, and then everyone's against you. So in this game right here, yeah, it's turn based, but we're thinking actually, so it could be a combination of both. So because we call them milestones, so maybe the milestone could be by when you reach that turn, or it could be triggered by the amount of cities you conquer. Because ideally, you can only conquer your required cities that you need to conquer, and then the conquistadors still roll in. So that's debatable. That's something it's not game breaking, whether it's turn based or if it's milestone based.
All right. And like we said, there's still plenty of time to build that part up of the game. So, with that said, again, we are now just about an hour and a half in. I think this will probably be a great time to wrap things up. And again, like I said, it's always great to have you on, Traevon. And if you're free, post Thanksgiving, we're all still awake after all that, we can certainly have you back on for another cast.
I'm down with it. I'm down with it. Much to talk about.
Oh yes. Again, each one of these topics is like an hour in of itself. So, with that said, I just have a few wrap-up questions for you, some more logistics-related stuff for people watching, and then we will say goodnight. So, the first thing, and this one thing I didn't ask earlier, but I want to kind of clarify here. How long has it been since you made the switch to 3D? Like, when did that occur, like, in terms of development?
Last month.
Oh. Well, it's still, and again, like, from what we saw, it looks, again, like things are very much along. I think, again, it goes back to what you're saying with making that switch and everybody being on board with it. Like, every part of the project synced with that change.
Exactly. Like, everything just went with it. It made more sense. Because honestly, if I seen footage of that footage to me looked more interesting than if I already see footage of the 2D one. Yeah. If you compare them side by side,
yeah,
we can let people. I can even do a post and ask like, hey, what did you guys like? What do you guys like more? I can post in the group I've never posted in before and then see what they say. Yeah. You know.
And I'm sure, and I think I would bet along with you that a lot of people would prefer the 3D look to it, because
it's going to help with them when we're reaching out to potential fans. It's going to help attract them.
Definitely. So, other questions I have, just to clarify, you were cutting in and out when you were saying it, but Bullock, in terms of the release, are you planning for 2019 for the PC?
Yes.
Okay.
Summer 2019.
Okay. And you, of course, talk about after that into 2020 having plans for console ports.
Yes. So we want to, ideally, when you're working on a game, you want to focus on one platform at a time. That's where people start to mess up. They start working on different platforms at the same time.
Yeah.
So PC and Mac first, and then after that release, we will focus on the consoles.
Great. Now, I guess here's a big question. Are you thinking about doing a second Kickstarter campaign for Bullock? Or with these new changes, or will you avoid that?
That is a very good question. Originally, but right before the Kickstarter, I had a conversation with our character artist, and he asked if the Kickstarter failed, will we do it again? Will we try it again? And I said at the time, I was like, yeah, dude, we know people like this game. We just need to scale up more. Then now I'm thinking like the energy that we put into the Kickstarter, I feel like that energy could have been better channeled towards the game development itself and actually marketing towards the actual launch of the game. So most likely no. But if we were to do another Kickstarter, we would scale down the goal. Like we would scale it down. Instead of $30,000, we would scale it down to maybe $5,000. That's if we were to do it, and then we would have to because like I said, we're revisiting how we're like targeting people. We're revisiting all that. So that's something that needs to be decided before we even do with Kickstarter. So right now it's looking like a no to another Kickstarter at the moment.
And again, it's always that give and take, because the energy you spend on the Kickstarter, you could spend on the game and vice versa. And it can be very hard sometimes to know, where your energy should be best directed.
Exactly.
And I'm trying to think if there's anything else question-wise. I guess for you, Traevon, any aspect of Bullock, whether it was Kickstarter, development, or even just gameplay related, that we haven't touched on that you'd like to bring up now? Or do you think we've covered everything?
I guess like my target audience and like how I'm going about, where'd my pen go? I'm approaching, like I'm just looking at marketing fundamentals, expanding, like really looking at who else is our target audience, making sure I'm involved, like I'm in the groups with the gamers, making sure we're getting these updates out there, we're putting it in front of more people to improve it. Because after this, I think within these next 2 weeks, we're pretty much done with combat. We'll work on the enemies themselves, like we'll get the enemy types nailed down, and then from there, like that's pretty much done, So I'm looking at getting it in front of as many people as possible. Like how do I get it in front of as many people as possible? And yes, we will be doing paid advertisement, but the paid advertisement though, if we're looking to release in summertime, then we're thinking paid ads maybe starting March, maybe. We have to do it. We have to do ads, Like,
All right. So, before we let you go for tonight, Traevon, with regards to social media, again, I know when we spoke, social media has been a big part of your push for Bullock and whatnot. What social media channels would you like to plug right now before we let you go?
I recommend if you want the behind the scenes of like everything I do little by little in regards to the game, you should follow me on Instagram. I can put the Instagram in the chat real quick.
It may get blocked. YouTube is a little weird about outside links, but if you want to send that to me, I'll include that in the notes for the show when it goes up recorded. But
so I would say that, and then make sure if you want access to the next demo coming out, make sure you can go to itch.io, but if you want like the demo before everyone else, you should sign up for the list. But other than that, yeah, if you want to play the game, go to itch.io, and then if you want to see the behind the scenes, you should go to the Instagram.
All right. And what's the website for Bullock as well?
Bullockgame.com, but we need to redo it. Like we had the perfect site, and then like I said, like 2018 has been this weird year of like blunders and stuff. Like for other aspects of the game, we had this perfect landing page for the game where it would collect emails. It had the trailer, it was just perfect. And then something went wrong behind the scenes. I'm not gonna put out details. So yeah, you can go to the website now, but it's not an ideal format. You know, it's not an ideal state.
Okay. Well, with that, I know you have to get going in the next few minutes, and I think we've definitely had enough for a great conversation for tonight. So, again, Traevon, as always, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you, and like I said the last few times, definitely best of luck with Bullock. Like I said, when I talk to most developers and they talk about these major changes to their games, it's always that sign of worry that's in the air, but it sounds like you and the rest of Ninja 5 know what you're doing, and you have a solid game plan for it going forward.
Yes, like it makes our end goal. It lines up with our end goal.
All right. So I already gave my end of podcast speech while you were getting things set up, so I'm all set on that front as well. So for everybody watching this live or recorded right now, thank you so much for tuning in. For those folks still on live who've been watching us this pre-Thanksgiving video or stream, I'll be back on later for some game coverage. But for everyone else, be sure to check back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. And be sure to check out Buluk Mayan Warfare on itch.io, and I'll include the other links when this goes up recorded. But until our next stream, have a great night, folks, and I'll see you all next time.